Wow, what a start, and I really want to thank Graham very much for coming today. He's a busy man, as you can probably tell from the portfolio that the Health Research Board have, and we know that you've included PPI in those grant applications, by the way, because I've never had as many calls from researchers in Ireland in my life to the IPPOSI office to partner, to be involved in some of their applications. And that's because of what you've done in the Health Research Board. Long may it continue, and I hope it really leads to really genuine engagement with the research community and patients in Ireland. So that's great. So now I'm going to get on with the business of today. And I'm going to talk I'm going to try and keep to time, so I'm going to talk up till 9 o'clock and let you know where we're at in terms of EUPATI. I'm conscious now that some people in the room have heard elements of this presentation many times, and some of you haven't. So I'm going to assume no one knows anything and start from the beginning. So I hope that's okay with all of you. The very first thing I want to do, and if Fanny and Ingrid Hine from EFGCP asked me to let you all know, there's 186 people here today. And the light blue is the patient organisation. So look at that, we've got 102 patients represented here today. So I think that's really important to look at. And in terms of the countries, we've got 26 countries. And they're well represented in the room, I think. So we're only 2 short of the entire 28. So I think that's good news. So in terms of what I'd like to do is, why do we have IPPOSI? Why do we have IPPOSI? Why do we have EUPATI? Sorry, doing my best. What is EUPATI, and where are we in terms of progress? So, as you all know, health research and policy is changing and changing fast, and I suppose there is a window of opportunity there in terms of trial design and relationships between researchers, which we've just heard, regulators, industry and patients. And we know that innovation transforms the lives of patients, and things like molecular targets, genome sequencing, translation research, it's all happening. And I mean, we're involved in health technology assessments and training of patients in Ireland. We're doing this within IPPOSI because we need that voice within the discussions. And I suppose what we need more of are people like me or like Laura who can engage on behalf of the patient, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're trying to do all across Europe with this project. And in terms of patients as partners, both preclinical and clinical research, it's not just about the clinical trials end of the research and development pathway, it's all the way through. And there's some really fascinating people in this room who will talk to Graham, will talk to you about how important it is to bring patients in before we even design new products and treatments, before researchers even start the process. You know, we often use the example of when you're developing a new shampoo as a company. Let's say, for example, it's L'Oreal. You talk to your market first. We don't do that in health research enough. And I suppose that's what this is all about, preparing people to be able to do that. So in terms of there is public distrust and a lack of knowledge about research. And when you look at the stats, only 6 to 12% of cancer patients participate in clinical studies. 75% of phase 2 to 4 studies are delayed in HIV due to slow patient recruitment. So is it this bad image? And we would have seen that in Ireland. We did our own market research around this to prove that the Irish public and the European public use the term guinea pig. They don't want to be a guinea pig, or a lab rat is the other term that's used. And I suppose that, you know, there are issues around clinical research and being involved. Of course there are risks. We all need to know that. But there are also other outcomes which are more positive, which we think the public needs to know more about. One of the things we find within IPPOSI is the public actually need to know they're protected, that there are regulations, there are ethics committees, there are patient safety elements to every piece of research that a human being is involved in. People don't necessarily know that. So in terms of where patients have a key role in all aspects of health research, the competent authorities, the policymakers, clinical research, HTA, health technology agencies, and research ethics committees. So these are the areas that we can be involved, but we don't have enough. We don't have enough patients at European level to do that. I think if we looked at, if I'm right, and Jan's in the room here somewhere, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we'd need 25,000 patient experts to cover all the ethics committees in Europe. That's a lot of people, you know, and that's a lot of work. So that's where we have to go. And so if we look again at the case, why is EUPATI needed? Patients seek up-to-date, credible, understandable information. We're largely unaware about clinical trials and translational research. Patient advocates have increasingly complex and professional tasks of advising on protocol design, informed consent, ethical review. This is a big responsibility. when you're a patient and you tick that box and you say, yeah, I'm going to get involved in your protocol design, you need to know what you're doing. And one of the things I have a real issue with is when agencies get patients to be involved and maybe they're not ready for that. That's an ethical issue as well. And I suppose we all see that, and that's why we're here. So just to move on in terms of, because I'm conscious of time, so what's EUPATI then? What are we about? We're a public-private partnership. It's a 5-year project. It's hard to believe now. It feels like longer, I have to be honest. But we started in February 2012. So we're 3/5 the way through the project. It's patient-led. So the European Patients Forum, and Nicola Bedlington is here, who's the CEO of that, are the leaders of this project also. We've got EGAN, the European Genetic Alliance Network, EURORDIS, which is the European Organisation for Rare Diseases, and the EATG, which represents the HIV community. And I think what's really important is that, you know, when we say patients lead, they really do lead within this project. And not only do they lead, but we do a lot of work in this project as well, and have worked together very strongly. But what's been really for me, and this is from a personal perspective, we've started to work very closely with the other stakeholders in this project, the clinicians, the academics, the industry, and built a very strong working relationship, I think, that will last beyond EUPATI, and friendships that will last beyond EUPATI. And I think that's a really positive outcome for our project as well. We've got 30 organisations involved, and it's a key pan-European initiative. And I'd like to say it's the flagship for IMI, but, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that, being involved in it. We're very proud of EUPATI, the people that work in this project. The key objectives are to develop and disseminate objective, credible, correct and up-to-date public knowledge about medicines. So objective and credible. And we're very, 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 very cautious of that. We build competencies and expert capacity and facilitate patient involvement in R&D. And we do not develop indication or therapy-specific information. This is the high-level stuff. What we're doing in EUPATI is not about specific disease areas. It's not about specific areas of interest to specific people or companies or patient groups. This is about what affects all of us, whether it be clinical trials, protocol development, health technology tests. We all have to go through the same processes. And it's about upskilling our patient community to be involved in that. And if you're a patient representative from one particular disease area, that doesn't mean you can't represent patients in general. And that's what we're about in EUPATI. Other organisations can do things differently. This is what we do. And that's what sets us apart. So in terms of EUPATI is developing educations targeted at different levels, and some of you will know this, some of you won't. I think we've got, could I have a show of hands of some of the trainees in the first round of our course so that we can see, yes, and I'd like to give them all a round of applause. Because you are the pioneers of this project. You're the first, we recruited the first 50 at the start of last year, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But I was just having a conversation about how when state agencies in Ireland now are asking for patients, I know that there is a number of people on this course from Ireland who are going to be ready to represent patients. It's not just going to be a handful of us here. We're going to have more people. And I think that's going to happen right across the other countries who are involved in this process. In terms of the 12,000 patient advocates, so this is the toolbox which Graham was talking about. And I'm going to talk about when that's going to be ready in terms of access to a toolbox online where people and patient groups in particular can learn more. And we have a really good example of that from an FP7 project called Patient Partners, which Ingrid Klingman and Kim Weaver were involved in. And one of the outcomes from that was a really good document about explaining clinical trials to the public. And in IPPOSI, when the project ended, we took that document and we created a website called clinicaltrials.ie from the content. And that's what this is all about. That's what this project is all about. So at the end of the project, this material can be utilised by the patient organisations to communicate better, accurate, objective information in R&D. And in terms of the Internet Library, we're targeting 100,000 individuals. That's not a limit. We want it to be more, you know, but that's our target. And obviously it's in 7 languages. So in terms of, this is the development, we're looking at the patient experts for 2013 to 15. In terms of the toolbox, by the end of 2016, that will be available, and the Internet Library is in the same sphere. So the topics to be covered, and I probably talked about this in depth, so I won't go through it in detail, but discovery, non-clinical testing, clinical development, clinical trials, regulatory affairs, and HTAs. The 7 frequently spoke, we wanted to do it in all languages, but you know what, we can't. We're tied by a budget here. So we've got 7, and that's going to be a challenge. So every piece of material available online will be available in 7 languages. So that is a piece of work. And we hope that it will ensure that this is accessible to the vast majority of people across the European Union and beyond. You know, this World Wide Web, after all. And in terms of the project lead, I've talked about this, so I'm not going to dwell on it. So in terms of our governance, we've got strong governance in this project, coordinated by patients, it's pan-EU umbrella groups, strong impotence from key academic partners and industry expertise, and we've got advisory bodies committed to ensure the independence and good governance, because people might ask that question, and who are they? The EMA, Swissmedic, MHRA, you know a lot of these names, and I think that's important to talk about. And you'll see all the logos of the companies involved and the patient groups involved in EUPATI. I was about to say IPPOSI again, sorry. So the uniqueness of this partnership, and it is unique because it's unprecedented. We're unique within the Innovative Medicines Initiative. EUPATI is patient-led. It's not industry-led. That sets us apart. The opportunity to establish effective and transparent and credible partnership, exceptional learning experience. We make the best use of industry expertise, and it's an opportunity to strengthen the voice of the patients in the search for innovation. And it's also the chance to reduce fear and lack of trust and misconception. That's a big challenge, but we're getting there. We've even got there ourselves within working in this project. So in terms of the progress and where we're at, I'm not going to go through this slide in detail, but that big red arrow will show you where we're at. And those of you who've been involved in European projects will know about this term work package, which I hate because it doesn't really tell you what's happening, but we're all divided into work packages. And we've got 7 within this project, and we all work very closely together within each of those. So I primarily work in work package 2 and 4. And you'll see where we're at in terms of the development of the project. We're nearly there. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're nearly there. And we've had 3 years of EUPATI done. We've had 3 events. We're in Frankfurt in 2012, Barcelona in 2013, Rome and Warsaw. And some of you have been to all of those events, and it's great to still have you on board and engaged. I can recognize so many faces in the room. And I think that's a real testament to this project, that you're still with us and you're still here and you get it and you're ambassadors for what we're trying to do. So I'm conscious of the time, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we've done our homework within this project. We've assessed patient and public attitudes towards research, and we've looked at, we're trying to reach those 100,000 people. We're asking you to tweet today. Tweet, please. Include people in your own country. Add hashtags where you can, because we want to reach as many people and let them know about this project and that it's happening. And in terms of the national platforms, you're going to spend a lot of time today talking about ENPs and NLTs, and I bet a lot of you in the room don't know what they are. So I just want to say, in terms of the national liaison teams, they're temporary task forces of 3 members, patients, academia and industry. And the idea and we have to focus on 12 countries because that's all we're resourced to do. And my colleague Laura Kavanagh is the NLT coordinator. She works in our office and she's an absolute godsend, and we would be lost without her in this project. But this is her job, to set up these NLTs, which will lead to platforms. I'd like to say platforms like IPPOSI, because we have every patient organisation in the country as a member. We've got academia, we've got industry, we've got a lot of those members in the room today. And I think that's, it's really important to try and challenge other countries where they're, believe me, I'm going to skip to the slide here for a second. This is where we're at with those 12 countries. There's some red lights. There's only 2, in fairness, red lights, and where we really need help to get this kind of engagement, patient-led engagement between industry and stakeholders off the ground. So if people in the room have ideas on how they might do that or might help, even if you're from a different country and you might have contacts or networks, please talk to me and Nora today. But you'll also see the green lights, where there have been lots of events, lots of engagement, lots of tweets, lots of Facebooks, websites have been set up to network, and I think that's great, and I think that's where we need to be. But in terms of the characteristics of the NLTs, just to be mindful, because you're going to do some work on this later today, the goal of the NLTs is to develop a country-specific approach for establishing a platform to ensure EUPATI understand the educational needs and to share information about EUPATI and raise the interest. We really need foot soldiers. We need people on the ground in each of the member countries, not just the 12. We've got Greece, we've got Romania, we've got other people in the room today who are just as encouraged and enthusiastic about this project. We need you to tell your patient organisations that this is happening and that this information is available. It's a gift. As someone like me who has been involved in training patients and running an organisation like IPPOSI for the last 8 years, this project is a gift to patient organisations in terms of the richness of the information, the credibility of the information and the objectiveness. We will be able to use it, but it will be a real shame if people don't know about it. So in terms of the platform, what we really need to do when we develop these NLTs into bigger platforms where there's 100 stakeholders involved, we raise awareness, we disseminate the EUPATI educational materials, identify patient involvement in topics of national interest and develop conditions for sustainability. You know, and I think that's really important, the sustainability of this project we'll talk about later. So, I think, you know, there's some nice pics here from some of the launches of platforms in some of our countries, and I think Laura was at every one of these, and there have been many more, and there are many more to come, and I think that's great. And I think as well, not only are we about launches, within each of these platforms, they've gone ahead and organised, we've had a couple of training days within Ireland on HTAs, and in some areas I think there's been a cinema, a film has been shown around R&D in one of the countries, and lots of people came along to that. We've had workshops and speeches and Twitter and Facebook engagement. We need more ideas now from you today on what more we could do. So in terms of I think I'm going to more or less finish on this slide. This is a photograph from October, or it's actually a photograph from Barcelona this year in 2015 from the patient experts who started their course in October 2014, and there's a good number of them in the room today. That's what this is all about, happy faces of patient representatives learning about medicine's development. And I think let's see if we can keep this project and this idea continuing post-2017. So I'm going to leave it there because I'm conscious of time, and I'm going to ask the next panellists to come up to the top table, and while they're doing that, I will introduce them. So Niels Westergaard and Rob Camp, who are colleagues of mine in the EUPATI project, and I'd like to say they're friends now because we've got to know each other very well. Niels holds a position as the Science and Innovation Cluster Manager at BioPeople, and it's the Innovation Network. And Rob Camp, I know very well from the European Patients Forum, and Rob also worked with Eurordis over the years and is a comms expert, and I'm going to let you introduce the panel.